11th of July 2018. Buy ingredients for pizza. 4th of March 2016. Jeff owes me $50. See, I'm always making notes. 1st of August 2013. Listen to all the Mahler, Tchaikovsky and Rack symphonies. These are reminders. 15th of May 2017. I am so grateful for my music education. Gratitude exercises. 5th of November 2015. How good is shitting? Surprisingly, this is another thing that I'm grateful for. I have 5,141 notes on my iPhone. Notes like 29th of December 2015. Listening to music is like watering my soul, like plants need water. That is a wellness/reflection note. 19th of February 2018. Singing is like wanking. If I don't do it once a day, I feel all stressed and bottled up. This is a spreadsheet that I made in my phone in 2016, comparing different hot chocolates around Adelaide and what I'd rate them out of 10. And this is a record that I kept in my Apple Health program of the exact dates and times that my boyfriend and I first had sex. For the first 27 times. This might seem really weird to you, but I just can't deal with the idea that information which means something to me at the time could just be forgotten forever. And that's how it's related to writing music. See, I'm a classical composer, and to me, being a classical composer is all about capturing musical ideas, writing down something that I would never find again, something important, and arranging it visually and working it into something greater. Across my life, I would have written hundreds of thousands of music notes. Tonight, I want to show you 4 core compositions that I've written. I thought that collectively they would be comprised of about 30,000 notes. There aren't 30,000 notes in the score tonight. Once I was finished, I counted them with my computer program. There are actually 16,838 notes. But we'd already named the show. Tonight, I want to tell you the story of where this music comes from. And to do that, I want to tell you the story of what I tried but failed to capture and what I tried but failed to forget. And I want to tell you this story through notes because that's what I do when I compose. I connect the notes that I've collected to tell a story. And they're really not that different. The notes and the notes. Because whatever compels me to write music also compels me to write 26th of August 2014, 9.80699. Do you know what this means? Tonight, I wanted to present my music for you live with a real choir of 16 and a string quartet, but this is the Adelaide Fringe. So we pre-recorded our music in binaural audio, which is this fancy hi-fi recording technique, which if you listen back to through headphones, you get the sonic illusion that you're actually in the room where the sound was recorded. But then we couldn't afford the headphones. So we're presenting this music to you in surround sound. When you hear this music, I want you to come into my world and hear what I hear and see what I've seen. And so, to complete this picture for you, we'll be projecting footage drawn from my family's home movies. But before we do that, I want to show you this. This is where my note-taking began. It's a manuscript book that my mum bought for me when I was 4 or 5 years old. Mum told me I could be a composer, like Beethoven or Philip Glass. I thought, Mum, you're silly. I can't do that. There is my first ever written composition. It's called What a Big Steep. And it has lyrics. C, C, D, E, F, 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 E, song. I wrote full song because I didn't know that you're supposed to write a double bar line to show that the song is finished. This book goes on to include these bangers. The show is on. The Lord, Jesus, God, licks us. Vicky, you are my best friend. And my personal favourite, the train is here. Mum actually accused me of ripping off Philip Glass. The train is here today, yes we are excited, 'cause we are excited, always be excited. Full song. I remember thinking that I couldn't be a composer because I thought the idea of a piece being by Philip Glass or by Beethoven sounded ridiculous to me. I never thought music came from anyone. I always thought music came to people, as if it's from somewhere else. These days I don't just use manuscript books to record my ideas, I also use my voice memos app. I have 3,923 voice memos on my iPhone. They sound like this. 4th of October 2013.
Muted trumpet. Da 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 minor.
That is the sound of me waking up from a dream, grabbing my phone and singing the music that I heard. I have no idea what it means. The voice memos are more useful when I can get to a piano. 2nd of April 2018, motor neuron research. That is the sound of my mum bursting in on me because we were about to leave in the car together, but then I got this idea and I had to run to the piano and record it, otherwise it would have been forgotten forever. It's my job as a composer to capture these ideas and then to order them, to figure out how they fit together, and in doing so to find coherency out of chaos. This is all of my classical music. This is my cabaret. This is my musical theatre. This is the period before I had an iPhone, and this is the period after I had an iPhone. This is when I realised for the first time that I'd fallen in love. This is when I came out and had to question, understand, and re-evaluate this amount of ingrained doctrines, values, and beliefs. These are my trains. These are my monsters. These are my recipes. This is the period where I made my own manuscript books because I couldn't find any that were exactly how I wanted them. These are all the periods where I found it easy to write music. And these are all the periods where I found it hard to write music. And this is the period where I don't have any notes because I threw them out. Whenever I'm overwhelmed, or there's all of this noise in my head, or feelings that are too complex to express in words, I'll always go to my piano. And I'll lock the door behind me and draw the blinds. And now it's just me and the notes. And I'll go into my own world. What you just heard was a composition that I wrote in 2018. It's not a core composition. It's just a little thing that I wrote to introduce you to the music and projection. What you saw was my first piano recital. My nonna came to that performance. She came to every performance. To tell you where the next composition came from, I need to tell you a bit about my nonna. These are all the notes I have that mention her. This is the first one. I used to write family newsletters. The Belperio and Kalo family, the only and best Belperio and Kalo newsletter. This was the first edition. New Year's celebration, 2006, off to a good start. At midnight, Channel 9 interviewed a bozo and missed the countdown. So we had to pop our party poopers and say happy 2006 without the TV. That's right, I wrote party poopers. I was so keen to write the second edition that I wrote it the next day. The Belperio and Kalo family, New Year's Day. At 12:03, we headed off to Nonna's where the New Year's Day lunch was ready. At 12:13, the pasta was ready. I helped Nonna make it. It was very good. I wish I had a note to convey the smell of the pasta as it wafted into the driveway, the way that Nonna would put it in our plate and say, mangia. The way that I would try and not eat too slowly as to offend Nonna. Why you not eating my pasta? I spent the 6 hours yesterday making the pasta and you not eat? But I couldn't eat too fast either, because if Nonna saw that our plate was getting empty, she would come along with the pot. Hey, you want some more? And that was never a question, it was a statement. But I never captured any of that when I was 12. Though, I did say, the Belperio and Kalo family, 2006 autumn edition. Nonna and Nonnel, how do they do it? A little piece of investigative journalism. Nonna and Nonnel know everything. Firstly, anything that has ever been invented in pasta has been cooked the best by Nonna. She simply can't be beat. This comes from being in ancient Italy. I must also comment on the garden. Nonnel has done a fantastic job. He paved a path, steps, a pergola, and other things. He then planted every fruit and vegetable in the world. I wish I wrote how my favourite thing to do after eating Nonna's pasta was to wander through Nonnel's garden and pick whatever I could find. Broad beans, peas in the winter, tomatoes, figs in the summer. And then I would take them back to Nonna because I knew they would make her smile so much. My favourite time was when the tomato vines grew on Nonnel's stakes high enough that they formed a canopy over my head, and I'd go into that grove full of green leaves and dappled sunlight. Easter vote. Tick the box you think is right. I'd wanted to make this newsletter interactive. It's a sliding scale from I think Easter is all about chocolate to I think Easter is all about what Jesus did. Half of this newsletter is dedicated to Jesus and God, which is kind of funny because I'm an atheist now. I don't know why I was so religious back then, but I know that seeing me talk about Jesus and God was one of the things that made Nonna so happy. Every time we got in the car before Nonna drove, we would say a prayer, because Nonna said that Sant'Antonio would protect us. We would say grace before eating lunch, and we would pray before going to sleep, and that was my favourite, because Nonna would come and sit on the edge of my bed and say, Joshy, now we do the Ave Maria, because we pray to the Madonna, and she will look after you while you sleep. And she'd go through it with me, line by line, and I would repeat it back to her in incorrect Italian, of course, but Nonna wouldn't mind. She was so happy to hear me say the words, Sancta Maria, Madre di Dio, prega per noi peccatori adesso e nell'ora della nostra morte. Amen. Si. And then she would kiss my cheek and say, good boy, and then kiss my forehead and say good night. She loved praying to the Madonna. And I loved listening to her sacred Italian words, letting them wash over me like waves, like Nonna was casting a magic spell. What rating do you give this newsletter? Circle the amount of stars you think it's worth. My Zia told me that Nonna was so proud of these newsletters. She loved seeing me writing. I remember Nonna's house always had an abundance of notepads and exercise books. Sometimes she'd put one in front of me and say, "Joshi, write something." Sometimes she'd write things for me, just for fun. I remember one time she did arbitrary maths calculations, which were incorrect. She never went to school past grade 3, but she still wrote in misspelt Italian and English. I remember she kept a dedicated recipe book in which she once wrote a recipe for pancakes, which she spelt Bengaze. And I said, "Nonna, is this pancakes?" And she said, Bengaze. This is the next note that I have about Nonna. Sunday the 12th, 2012. I think I'll save this one for later. First of January 2013. In the new year. 1. Write a brilliant musical. 2. Get a girlfriend. 3. Keep the quartet together. 4. Spend more time with Nonna. Then I have this voice memo that I made in my phone after a visit to Nonna. 29th of March 2013. That's actually one of the first records that I have of writing music that is intentionally painful. 27th of March 2013. Nonna in S8, bed 8. 15th of November 2013. Sleep at Nonna's. 2nd of December 2013. Perform Christmas carols for Nonna. I don't know if I did any of those things. 31st of August 2014. It's a draft for a Facebook post. Okay, after all the different opinions on the subject, here is why I chose to complete the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. This is a photo of my Nonna and I. Nonna has motor neurone disease, known in America as ALS. For those who don't know, motor neurone disease is a fast-acting degenerative illness where the very nerve cells that give you control over your muscles are broken down. This has meant that over the past 2 years, I've watched Nonna lose the ability to talk, to cook, to eat, walk, and generally do any of the things that we take for granted. Her mind is intact, and yet she can't communicate with anyone, essentially having become paralysed within her own body. The worst thing for watching a loved one suffer through this is knowing that there is absolutely nothing that you can do about it. Every day just gets worse and worse, and you are totally powerless to stop it. It was during this period that I made another voice memo that I want to show you. 25th of October 2013. When I made that voice memo, I had to run to the piano because I just had a dream. I was swimming in the Great Barrier Reef. I remember it really well. I was weightless and there was blue, pure blue all around me. And it felt like the blue of who I am. And I felt free. And the water felt really sexual for some reason. And then, echoing from beyond the coral reefs, I heard two chords, and over the top of them, a soprano singing that melody with lyrics in Latin. Magna Gloria. As soon as I heard it, I knew I had to wake myself up and capture it, because this was the most beautiful idea that had ever come to me. But if I stayed asleep, I would forget it. So I forced myself to wake up, and I grabbed my phone, and I ran to the piano, and I got there just in time. What I discovered in this idea is that music can intertwine pain and beauty. And if you make music more painful in just the right way, it can somehow become more beautiful. And all of this was somehow related to Nonna and her suffering, her disease, and its randomness, and the fact that all of this pain was just bad luck, and being powerless, and chaos, and noise. And the Madonna, and her prayers, and her searching for something higher. I tried so many times to explain how all of this was connected. These are all the notes that I made trying to do that. But I couldn't. And when I was composing it, there were so many times when it just felt like I went into a trance, and the right notes were just coming to me, as if someone was guiding me towards them. But when I was connecting those notes and figuring out how they fit together, I wrote all of these drafts. And I still couldn't really figure out how they were supposed to fit together. Eventually, I made peace with the fact that it was missing something, and I finished it on the 12th of August, 2014. And this is it. This is Magna Gloria. It was fusilli, not cavatelli. I still don't know where it comes from, but the words Magna Gloria were used a lot in the weekly masses at my high school. My family sent me to a very religious high school. June 2009. Being a Jesuit school, we say a prayer before each lesson, and I believe it helps us do better in our subjects. Around the time I start going to this school, you can see a change in the wall. See, before this point, my notes are full of colour. You can see my fascination with rainbows and monsters, mermaids and mermen. But after this point, I stop using colour. To understand where the next composition came from, I need to tell you a bit about my relationship with my sexuality. These are all the notes I have to do with sexuality. 2009. Maybe Isaac's gay because he always had such a bad fatherly figure. Isaac was a character in a musical that I was writing in Year 9. 2010. Twilight the musical. This is another musical that I was writing, and I thought this would be a hilarious punchline. Edward is gay. 18th of May 2010. She went in for a little peck. Just a little one on the cheek, like we often do. I was off guard, and as an instinct I flung my arms up in defence. This was my attempt at having a girlfriend. Then there's this period where I had notes, but I threw them out. These notes were about a boy. We met when we were 14. We were both kind of loners, but we met each other and we didn't feel so alone. And we shared everything. And then school wasn't so bad for us anymore. And then we shared a bed at music camp. And at 1 a.m. that night, or about then, I made notes about how it felt. I gave him the terrible excuse that I wanted to do my maths homework. And in the last 4 pages of my maths exercise book, I wrote exactly what I felt. How good, but how wrong it felt. How I could see the future of a wife and children disappearing. How I thought that if I could only hold on to my pillow and not let it drop to his bunk below, then that future won't disappear. These notes would have told you exactly what it was like to have internalized homophobia. The next day I got my first panic attack. And then they got worse and worse. And then I got so angry towards him, and then I stopped speaking to him, and the anxiety didn't go away, and I couldn't sleep, and my grades plummeted, and I lost whatever friends I remotely had, and then one day I decided I had to move on. So I took the notes that I'd made about him, the notes that would have explained this to you perfectly, and I threw them out. Because I decided I wasn't that person who did those dirty, monstrous things. I decided I was straight. We never had sex. We cuddled. That was about it. And I felt like a monster. Because I don't have any notes, I can only tell you the things that I remember. I remember waiting to get through one whole day without thinking about him. I remember feeling like he had assaulted me. He hadn't. I remember going to Nonna's those mornings when she would drive us to school and trying my best to hide it from her, but her saying, "Joshy, you're not happy. You not tell me, ma nonna knows. Why are you not happy?" I remember it feeling like a win if one single day went by without having a panic attack, and when they were bad, feeling like there was a plastic bag over my head and I couldn't breathe. I remember wondering if I was going insane. I remember being alone. The last time we meaningfully connected, he came into the music rooms one recess time and just shouted at me, called me a coward, said I was running away, and he was right. 31st of January 2014. Do you remember when I was 12 years old and I came to you saying that I think I'm never going to get married? I know it's a shock. It's something that took me years to realise, but only 2 words to tell you. This is a draft of what I was planning to say to Mum. I never said it. March 2014. I've just reread my messages. Sorry, I'm not thinking clearly. What I meant to say is that I'm not interested in boys at this stage. Or at any other stage. Ha ha! This was my second attempt at having a girlfriend. Late 2014. Dear Alex. Alex was a man that I'd met in the middle of 2014. I wish that my feelings for you never happened, that they weren't real, but they are. In fact, I can't recall ever having felt so strongly for someone for such an extended period of time. He doesn't care. 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 Encode this into the fabric of the symphony. I'd started writing a symphony at the end of 2014. These are all the notes that I have about it. I never finished my symphony. It was arguably the most intellectually vacuous endeavour in my entire compositional output. The idea was to work out how to encode hidden messages into music. This only works on the model of composing that they taught us at university, which is that composing is not about capturing ideas, it's about the great man constructing them with his intellect. The symphony was also going to explore my synesthesia. I have this benign neurological condition called synesthesia, where parts of my brain that aren't supposed to be connected are connected, so that every letter and music note triggers the perception of a colour. This sketch shows that the symphony was going to start with a red theme, and that felt like obsession. And then it was going to go to a blue theme, and that felt like who I really am. And the whole piece would tell the story of how these 2 themes battle it out. They go through a green section, which felt like sickness, until they finally resolve at a gold section, which felt like acceptance. And when you match these colours to their synesthetically corresponding letters, you get A, L, E, X. The problem is, when you overload music with hidden messages, it just sounds terrible. I wrote this note while I was trying to write my symphony. 29th of December 2014. This was after a conversation with a friend where I talked about my feelings for Alex for the first time, and I wanted to remember what he told me. 1. This feeling is normal and acceptable, even if it would creep Alex out if he found out. Welcome to the human race. 2. These feelings are not going anywhere anytime soon. 3. Think about something else. 4. And that one's blank. And then underneath it, it says, your life is so much more valuable than that. I couldn't write number 4, but I remember. It was, don't take your life. I didn't write this down, and I didn't keep notes about my sexuality, because as exhausting as it is to run away from your feelings, to deny objective reality, it is so much harder to confront all of the connections that you have in your brain about what being gay means. Connections that you've constructed over years. Connections that you're not even aware that you've made because you didn't write them down or you threw them out. But by now, the battle between my objective reality and the connections in my brain had gotten to the level where I knew if it kept going, it would consume me. That I would slip away into this blank note. And so, after this point, I started allowing myself to make all of these notes about Alex. This is when I tried to draw Alex and I cuddling, but then I realised that I can't draw. 24th of February 2015. It's a list of things that I love about Alex. At the bottom, it says, it was perfectly rational to fall in love with him. A very smart, intelligent thing to do. That love can be a hugely positive thing, driving my life forwards. I remember this idea came to me like a revelation. 27th of April 2015. Things I never ever want to forget about Alex. This is from when we met up in a cafe. How he so jokingly yet genuinely came out to me as straight. Pretending to be casual, I told him I found out that I'm queer last year, a line that I'd practiced many times, and he didn't bat an eye. He just looked at me and said, I don't even think it should be a thing. And in that one moment, I was healed. After this point, I started making all of these coming out notes. This is when I tried to plot my sexuality on a graph. 24th of April. I really want to bake someone a cake that says, guess who's gay? 24th of April. Now I can actually say that Dad had more of a problem with me coming out as a musician than coming out as gay. This is when I came out to the family, the most awkward experience of my and probably their life. I told them in a few sentences and then there was dead silence. And then we just went out for dinner. July 2015. This one's a mind map. And in the centre is a bubble that says being gay means that, and around it are connections that are divided into positive and negative. Being gay means that, positive, I have the capacity to love another human being more than anything in the universe. Negative, I am not a real man. Positive, my brain is wired in a different way that allows me to be more creative and to think of things that others will not. Negative, I am laughable. Positive, I'm unique. Negative, I am girly and effeminate. Negative, my father has failed. Negative, I'm being punished for former sins by becoming what I failed to tolerate in the past. I have all of these notes about coming out during this period, but only one note about Nonna. '30th of November 2014. The pentatonic chimes project their ghostly tones through the deserted garden over the loud hum of the pump. Though bereft of any human inhabitants, the garden was teeming with life. Insects danced their spring mating rituals, plants grew green in the water and sunshine. Life goes on. This is when I visited their house for the last time, and I was looking out over this garden that had long since been overrun by weeds. Nonna had to go into a nursing home, and from that point, I hardly visited her. I remember it was just so difficult to see her like that. This strong, endlessly generous woman that I knew had been replaced by this angry, frail woman who wouldn't accept her own weakness, who tried to talk to us, but we couldn't understand her. And so she would just get frustrated, and so in the end, she just didn't talk. This woman who always had a handkerchief in her mouth, which was perpetually wet from her own saliva. No matter how many times we tried to tell her we love her regardless of her illness, she just said, Joshi, I am not very good, Nonna. It was during this time that an idea for a choral piece came to me. I was supposed to be writing my symphony, but this piece came from that place of something being painful but beautiful at the same time. I called it 1,000 Winds, and this will sound really weird when you hear what it was about, but writing it was a way for me to channel my post-coming out energy. The piece was a setting of Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep, the poem that's traditionally read at funerals. By now I'd realised that Alex would never love me back, and I'd probably never see him again. And I don't have a note for this, but I remember one time when I was walking to the park and I was looking up at the green leaves and dappled sunlight above my head and realising that I hadn't seen this beauty in nature since I was a child playing in Nonnel's garden. And it felt like I could see it again now because of how Alex had affected me. So even though he was gone from me, he'd always be a part of how I see the world now. And that made me happy. So happy that I encoded a hidden message to him into the graphic scoring at the end. If you look at this page at exactly the right angle, you can read, "I love you, Alex." I finished it on the 21st of June 2015. And this is it. This is 1,000 Winds. 22nd of August 2015. It's a list of things to remember. 1. Tissues. 2. Panadol. 3. Sheet music. 4. Eulogy. A friend of mine once told me a story. He was studying Italian in primary school, and the teacher asked the class to define the word mangia. Of course, everyone put up their hands. The teacher chose a boy who had Italian nonni. The boy said, "Mangia? Well, it means I love you." The teacher was confused. They said, "No, mangia means eat." The boy was completely stunned. He looked at the teacher incredulously and asked, "Why then, whenever my nonna gives me a bowl of pasta, does she hug me and kiss my cheek and say, 'Mangia'?" Of course, the boy was right. And if this is true, then nonna loved us more than anyone. I wasn't there when she died, because I was writing. I remember Mum called me up and said to get to the hospital, and I kept writing. And then a few minutes later, she called me up again and just said, "Don't hurry." And I knew what she meant. And I threw my chair against the wall, and I sped there, and when I got there, I tried to ask her, when exactly did she die? What was the exact time? But Mum just started crying. And I hugged her. And now that information is lost forever. I made these notes after she died. 21st of August 2015. The way that she would sing her folk songs around the house. I wanted to remember how nonna loved music. "29th of October 2015. Nonna's death reinforced to me the preciousness of life. Hence, the problems that were inhibiting me from living my life to the fullest became less potent, because my motivation to change my self-limiting beliefs increased. Hence why I just wanted to go out and have sex with men." 19th of November 2015. Project Find Cute Boy. It's an Excel spreadsheet. Boy 1, estimated 15 minutes conversation. He's nice, but I don't feel a need to get to know him much more. Boy 2, estimated 20 minutes conversation. He's pretty cool. I would like to get to know him more, even though after friending me on Facebook that night, he proved to be unavailable. I'd been preparing for Nonna's death for a while. This note shows that I'd started brainstorming her eulogy in 2014. But still, I couldn't quite understand how nonna could just stop. All of her memories, her stories, her thoughts, her fears. I kept asking everyone that I knew the question, but where did she go? Where exactly did she go? "24th of November. Things I never want to forget. Dad, when I walked into the hospital room and saw Nonna dead, holding her hand and telling me she has suffered enough. If there's one image that I won't forget, it's Nonna's dead body. I remember being huddled in that room with my family for ages, and then a priest walked in. And that is when I understood the appeal of the Catholic religion, because here was this man saying that she is probably with God now and that we should pray for her. And it was almost laughable because he was denying objective reality of this corpse in the room with a green-tinged tongue. There's that note that I didn't show you before, the one from 2012. I want to show it to you now. Sunday the 12th of 2012. This is a real typewriter. Chapter 1. Once upon a time, there was a real typewriter. It typed musical notes. This is when I found an actual typewriter at Nonna's. Ciao, Nonna. Sto scrivendo a macchina. Hello, Nonna. I'm writing on the typewriter. I remember Nonna walked in at this point, and I asked if I could write what she was saying. It says, anything you want, Joshi. Hai finito? Have you finished? It continues in Italian. This typewriter belonged to your Aunt Maria. She is no more. Maria was Nonna's daughter, who I never met because she passed the year before I was born. I remember Nonna was crying at this point. So I suggested we write her life story then and there. Nonna's life story. Chapter 1. I was born on the 9th of March 1932. In Italy, it snowed all the time. In Italy, everyone had a mule or a donkey. Nonno's father had a mule and a donkey. In 1953, I married Nonno. In 1954, I gave birth to your father, Pasquale. In 1956, I birthed my second child, Maria. In 1958, I birthed Antonio. And then there's a gap. And I remember she said, I don't want you to write down my life because it was a tragedy. And then she started crying again. There was always this undercurrent of grief in my memories with Nonna. And don't get me wrong, my brothers and I filled her with so much joy. But that joy couldn't quite touch the sides of her grief. She came to this country to make a better life for her children. And in this country, she buried 2 of her children. And that's all I have for you. All the notes that can explain this story. And I'm sorry that it wasn't enough, and that I couldn't capture for you the smell of Nonna's pasta as it wafted into the driveway, or why exactly I thought I was a monster for being gay, or what Gloria means, or the colour blue, or how it is that something can be beautiful but painful at the same time. But these notes are all I have. The notes and the memories. And I'll never really know what was true. And maybe in 10, 20 or 30 years' time, the memory will have faded and I'll be left just with the notes. And I'll never be able to record all of this life for you, and I'll never be able to capture her. Then maybe it has been pointless to try. That's all I have. But when we cleared out her home, we found these. Notepads and exercise books. 24th of September 2009. Oggi il nostro uccella femmina ha fatto le uova. Today, our female bird laid eggs. 15th of October 2009. Oggi sono nato I piccoli uccellini. Today, the baby birds were born. We found recipes too. 26th of June 2002. Almond biscotti, rollati e poi tagliati. Almond biscuits, rolled and then cut. It's all in misspelt Italian and English. We never found Bengais. We never found that recipe book that I remembered. The best part was finding these. 39 VHS tapes. We didn't know she had this many tapes. We thought she just had one tape and she kept taping over it again and again. But no, 39 tapes. She recorded our every moment with her little Panasonic video camera. And these are the videos that you've been seeing the whole night. 3 months after she died, I was trying to write my symphony, and I got to this chord. It was a chord that I'd used before in Magna Gloria. It was a blue chord, and I held the chord. And I felt her presence with me. I mean, I don't really believe in any of that shit. But I felt her presence with me. And I set my voice memos up to record, and this music came to me. It had bits of Magna Gloria and bits of A Thousand Winds, but reborn into a new piece, which I called Where Nonna Is. That night I made a note. November 8th, 2015. Where Nonna Is. I was composing my symphony and thinking about how I never came out to Nonna. I imagined coming out to her as she was drifting in and out of consciousness in the days before she died. Then I remembered seeing her dead body. And at that moment, I played the chord that I had been working on. And I knew that whatever love and pain that compelled me to play that chord was the love and pain that she gave me. And that is where she is. Nonna is in every dissonant yet beautiful chord that I write, and she is in every man that I love, because Nonna taught me how to love. Only half of the music came to me that night. So I collected the notes that I'd made and I put them away. And then a year later, when Nonnel died, the same thing happened. I felt his presence with me. And the second half of the music came to me. And it was at that point that I knew that it had to be called Where Nonna and Nonnel Are, which is not as poetic a title as Where Nonna Is, but I know that if I don't include Nonnel, he will haunt the shit out of me. I went back over these notes and figured out how they fit together for this show. So this is the world premiere. And this is it. This is Where Nonna and Nonnel Are. 3 months after she died, actually 4 months, sorry. 4 months after she died, I was looking for love and I found it in a scientist. He researches how to cure incurable diseases. He's sitting at the back of the room. Matthew and I have been together for 3 years and 2 months. Matthew noticed how I take notes, and the whole concept behind this show was his idea. And it was his idea to keep calling it 30,000 notes, even though there aren't actually fucking 30,000 notes. A year into our relationship, I gave him this. Yes, we are sickeningly sweet. It has text messages and notes that I'd made about him and photos, as well as a series of diary entries that comprehensively chronicle our first 13 dates. Second date, 1st of January 2016. When the sun was shooting golden rays onto the side of the grass and the water was sparkling, we shared our first kiss. 19th of January 2016. I dreamt of Nonna last night. She was singing to me. She was proud of me. I walked out of her kitchen and opened her back door to find her smiling at me with a golden sunset behind her. I felt like she was trying to tell me that she accepts Matthew. Nonna may never have accepted Matthew. There's a lot of things that she never accepted. I didn't really notice them when I was a child, though. I remember when I was a child with Nonna and we were talking about what I wanted to be after school, and I was hoping that she would accept that I wanted to do music. She just said, "Nonna no care. You do what you want." She always wanted me to be happy. That's what would make her happy. That's why she said, "Mangia." Maybe it's important to review our notes. But maybe it's the unwritten that we carry with us into the future. The moments that words on a page or dots on a stave will never express. The notes are just the pale imprint that we're left with once the unwritten has passed. These are the last notes that I want to show you tonight. They are a setting of E. Cummins' I Carry Your Heart With Me. They came to me as I was just falling asleep and starting to dream. They came from Matthew and everything that his love means to me. They tell a story of beauty and pain, love and suffering. And in these notes, those two are always intertwined. Because I love Matthew, I will suffer. Because every love story will end in suffering. I know that whatever mixture of love and pain that compelled me to write this comes from the love that Nonna taught to me and the pain that she left behind. And so, Nonna did not die, as long as my ability to love lives on. And now that love starts anew, in gardens of green leaves and dappled sunlight, in the colours red, orange, green, gold and blue, always blue, and always with Matthew standing there. Because now I have given that love to Matthew. Thank you so much. No one's ever done that for me before on this show. So, if you would like to make your own notes, you can do so via the post-it notes at the back of the room. You can share your thoughts with us, and if this show has a future life, then we will carry these notes with us wherever we go. If you would like to carry these notes home with you, as in the notes that you heard, you can buy CDs. Thank you. At the merchandise stand over there. Also, if you happen to conduct a choir, you can buy sheet music or a variety of other merchandise that's available. At the merchandise stand, you can also make a donation to Motor Neurone Disease South Australia. The money goes towards supporting people currently living with the disease in South Australia, as well as supporting research into this disease that we know hardly anything about. And finally, my last note is that if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to spread the word and tell someone that you like. If you didn't enjoy this show, you know how it goes. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening.